So here's another ethical dilemma, and this one is around, should we use hologram co-pilots of famous people to help us? Now, this sounds like very science fiction-y, but as I like to say, where it's almost sometimes feels like we're living in a science fiction world today. The world we live in is mirroring some science fiction novels I've read when I was a little kid. One of those books is a book called Gateway, which is part of the Heechee Chronicles by Frederick Pohl. Frederick Pohl was a famous science fiction writer. An editor, lived into his 90s, and he was productive for like 70 years. He was a pretty incredible guy. And his foundation, his main work is this Gateway series or Heechee Chronicles series. And it involves a guy who goes on an expedition from an asteroid that has these ships on it, these alien ships, and you get paid to go on these expeditions because you don't know if you're going to live or die if you go out on one of these expeditions. And the hope is that these shuttles that are on this asteroid will send you someplace cool. You'll bring something back that's really cool and then become rich. And that's essentially what happens to him. He goes out on one of these shuttles, leads him to a place where he's able to get something of value and bring it back to Earth. But in the process, he accidentally leaves the rest of his crew in the event horizon of a black hole, including his lover. And so he feels like this immense guilt about this. And so he has an artificial, intelligent hologram replica of basically Sigmund Freud, who helps talk him through his trauma about abandoning his shipmates on this event horizon. And so this is not necessarily an idea that's out. We're seeing like video phones like we used to see on Star Trek. They're real things now. So the idea of having a hologram that's run by an artificial intelligence and informed by AI is not out of the realm of possibility. I could see that happening within the next 10, 20 years. And you already have, AI bots impersonating dead celebrities now, or dead historical figures. Now, I think there was one about Harriet Tubman that was impersonating Harriet Tubman based on the data that it had. So is that ethical? And so here's my ethical question around that. So there is this physicist, mathematician, Eric Weinstein, public intellectual. Eric Weinstein, you've probably seen, he's had his own podcast, The Portal. He's been on Joe Rogan numerous times. And he has some theories about physics that are controversial or haven't been widely adopted, but maybe one day they will be. So let's say one day Eric decides, I'm going to have my brain scanned and do whatever battery of tests it takes to create an algorithm that replicates my consciousness so that when I die, I have some level of immortality. A version of my consciousness will live on after I die. So he does this, and the algorithm's created, and it lives on some computer system. And then on his deathbed, Eric says, you know what? I really changed my mind. And he writes down documentation. I want that deleted. It's not really me. I did that 3 months ago. I've changed since then. I feel really uncomfortable leaving this algorithmic replica of myself with the world while I'm gone. And then he dies. He croaks. And then some scientists come forward and say, you know what, we really need Eric's consciousness. We need this algorithm that he created of himself to help us talk through this physics problem that's going to save humanity if we get it right. And if you delete his replica as he requested, humanity could be in peril, right? So there's your ethical dilemma. Do you delete the replica of Eric Weinstein, or do you keep it and save humanity? And this gets back to the old question about whether or not you should make ethical decisions about the individual versus the collective. The whole Star Trek scene with Spock and Kirk in the movie The Wrath of Khan, where Spock sacrifices himself for the collective. That's what kind of that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. That question is a serious ethical question. So, and I think that question, ethical consideration would be at play, right? Oh, do we keep this algorithm of Eric, even though he said to delete it, because it's going to help the more people, and he's dead anyhow. So what does he really care? But then it comes into issues around dignity too, right? We believe people should have some control and dignity after they die. Is that infringing on that? Is it infringing on privacy? Like having this replica of him, and we can assume maybe perhaps memories. Memory is a big part of our consciousness. So, is there an ethical issue about having his memory stored within this algorithm on a computer somewhere? Probably in the blockchain, where anybody could access it. Is that ethical? There's also the trust issue, right? Like, can we trust the data? Can we? And then the trust he put into the people he requested to delete his virtual doppelganger. Lots of ethical questions about this. I know where I land, honestly, though. From my perspective, you keep the Eric bot. He created it, and obviously the ethical decisions, the needs of the collective outweigh the needs of the one. So from that ethical point of view, I would say, yeah, Eric, sorry, you're dead. we need your doppelganger more than you need it deleted. So I would vote to keep it. But I think, this raises a lot of questions, additional questions ethically that should be considered as well. Like, for instance, will we in our wills have to have some addendum to our will, or some part of our will that outlines what we want done with our digital selves after we die? A lot of us are going to be living a lot of digital material on platforms like YouTube and social media and other places. I don't think we've wrestled with that, much less what if people are able to construct digital versions of ourselves after we die, whether it's based on actual scans of our brains or whatever it might be, or based on collecting data from our YouTube videos and forming a replica of Sense and Signal podcast, so Dan can continue talking at the world for infinity. I know what people really want me to do, right? You want the Dan AI bot, and maybe I really already am. Maybe you don't know. Maybe I'm already an AI bot, and you just don't know it. Maybe I don't know it. But do we need to have laws around how this is managed after we die? And do we need does copyright need to get into this? Or, and what happens when the copyright protections run out? After 80 years, does anybody get to replicate George Clooney after he dies, right? When does that statute of limitations run out with AI? So, or that those protections run out. So I think those are very interesting questions around mortality and AI that we should be considering, and whether or not it's ethically right to replicate a historical person, to interact with them. Do the dead have agency, I guess, right? Over how they're used? Because it's a little bit different than writing a fictional version of it, of a person. Because the AI is attempting to replicate what the algorithm thinks the person was like.